Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Williams, your host. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning to the state, the great state of Texas. Good morning to the great country of the United States. Good morning to the world, and good morning to all the reaches that our 100-watt transmitter is cornering itself into, bending around the ionosphere, etc., to get where it needs to go. We are going to have a great program for you today, as usual. And today is Thursday, and we are welcomed and honored to have once again the presence of Neil Aquino. But before we get to that, we have to acknowledge the presence of our geniuses in the studios who are able to make all this stuff work on pennies. Good morning, studio. How are you guys doing this morning?
We're doing great, Egberto. Howard's off doing what Howard does.
Oh, Howard, you're hooky again, Howard. Well, we have Jack here, and Jack is a jack of all trades.
Master of none.
Master of them all. What's up, Jack?
Well, I got a little thing for you that might go with your program a little bit. I wrote this morning.
Yes, sir. Let me hear it.
It's about the seduction of Trump and the seduction of Hitler. Trump's MO is a seduction of hate. He seduces the people with their own fears and prejudices. He acts like he's your father, an authoritarian figure. He tells you he's going to protect you from all those bad immigrants, the Chinese, the gays, the liberals, which I believe he is a neoliberalist. Just like Hitler's seduction of the German told them that they had been wronged in World War I and they didn't deserve the judgment of the Treaty of Versailles. And he was the only one who could save them. Sound familiar?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And yes, it does. Hey, Jack, good one. As usual, you always have a good morning of wisdom for us. Thank you for that. Anyway, folks, we have a great program for you today. The title of the show today is 15 States Refuse Fed Children Hunger Dollars. I want you guys to get that. 15 red states say no to feeding their hungry children. And guess what? Where hunger is more prevalent? In red states. We may get to it, we may not, but the link is in the blog at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Likewise, representative from Texas, Jasmine Crockett, at the GOP hearings, had a piece of words for the Republican actors in the Biden hearing, the contempt hearing they had for Biden in Congress. Have a video that I made for that as well. We may not get to it, but we'll see. Remember, again, you can go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter to go ahead and listen to that one. But we're going to start today with Brother Neil Aquino. Neil Aquino is the founder of the Houston Democracy Project. Neil Aquino, and by the way, you can get that at NeilAquino.com. NeilAquino.com. Good morning, Neil. How are you doing this morning, sir?
Good morning, a galactic good morning to everyone reached here by Politics Done Right. Those policies you're talking about of denying the food aid, that's a perfect reason to press all of your Democratic local officials to do all they can to drive turnout in Harris County, so we can change those policies. So an excellent lead-in and topic.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but anyway, you had quite a few lead-ins and topics yourself. We had you wrote 3 very prescient blogs. As I always tell people, one of the reasons we talk a lot about Harris County and what's going on in Harris County is that, in fact, Harris County is a bellwether county, which means it's sort of representative of the United States in the aggregate. and what happens here ultimately always permeates itself around the country. So let's go ahead and have a little discussion first here on one of the articles in your blog. I want to talk about with the one that you wrote titled, "Why Do Law Enforcement Unions Keep Supporting Anti-Democracy Forces Who Attack Cops?" You know, the Republicans like to pride themselves in being the law and order party. Some of our neoliberal Democrats, including our new mayor, would have you believe that the biggest problem in our city is in fact crime. And I want to expand a little bit about that after you tell me a little bit about this blog.
Sure. I wrote a post. I wrote a post entitled, "Why Do Law Enforcement Unions Keep Supporting Anti-Democracy Forces Who Attack Cops?" And it was spurred by a CBS News poll that said significant numbers of Republicans believe that law enforcement officers and federal law enforcement officers were instigators and boosters of January 6th. So they've got this untrue thing. The U.S. District Attorney for the District of Columbia called the January 6th insurrection, this was just a couple days ago, he termed it such, the largest single-day mass assault of law enforcement officers in our nation's history. So you just want to think about that. It's not some civil disturbance, not Shays' Rebellion back in the 1790s. It was this. He said that the estimate of 140 officers injured that day is low. If you Google it and look around, you will see that right-wing violence is consistently seen.
Oh, we lost. We temporarily lost Neil. I'm pretty sure he'll be back in a second. But while Neil gets back in, let me come back and tell you some of what oh, here he's back. Go ahead, Neil.
That's okay. The ionosphere was right in the middle there, and cut me off.
Yeah, you were talking about 100, over 140. It's a low number, and likewise, you said that it's the largest disruption even beyond Shays' Rebellion.
So anyway, it's you have a right-wing violence consistently threatening law enforcement. If you remember, we've had these debates where we've had these debates where the federal government has wanted to talk about right-wing violence as a source of consistent attacks on law enforcement.
Right.
And the U.S. Congress, they'll say, "Oh, you're weaponizing the Justice Department. You're weaponizing the Justice Department to criticize the Republican Party." And locally here, the law enforcement unions, we talked last week that they continue to support Ken Paxton. The Houston Police Officers Union supported Ken Paxton in 2022. And the public has every right to ask how the safety of police is enhanced by looking the other way at insurrection, why democracy is not a top priority of law enforcement unions. It's not credible to always be going on about law and order while ignoring clear calls for political violence from one of the two major parties. And I'll add on to that, as I was fishing around this morning, SB4, I was reading a column in the Show Me Your Papers immigrant bill that police don't even want. I was reading a story in the Laredo Times about how the Laredo Police Department doesn't want it. It puts officers in danger. They don't have the resources. You'll see that over and over. We don't even like the bills. We don't like the gun control. We don't like the absence of gun control. We don't like this. We don't like that. And yet it never changes this underlying narrative where our officers, our police officer unions support the people who are enacting these policies and support anti-democratic actors. And it gives me a little pause about what exactly the end goal of some of these unions are.
Well, let me just say something here, and this may be a bit controversial, but I think many of the militias and these right-wing guys that that love their guns, they feel themselves an appendage to the police. And in fact, many of these gangsters, if you will, are ex-military ex-cops, some current cops. So you can see the affinity there. Their only concern is that when you write gun laws, you can't write gun laws for some people and not others. So while you'll hear even some police unions talk up against certain gun laws, you don't see them penalize those who write those gun laws because they know that some of their own accomplices are pretty much a part of the movement. But here's the thing that I want to get to still on this subject, but taking it a different location. We have too many who are constantly talking about law and order and locking people up and making sure that they pay the price, not understanding that the genesis of a lot of crime is poverty and socioeconomic conditions. That's a statement of fact. And one of the stories that I hope to get to today is, we have a lot of money for people in red states that could pretty much solve a hunger problem. A hunger problem is also solving a hunger problem is also a crime reduction problem. How is that a crime reduction problem? If you are the parent of hungry kids and the hunger gets out of hand, you may resort to crime to help feed your kid. If you have a hunger problem, the developmental state of that kid is compromised, which leads to criminality. If you have a hunger problem, you also have a problem with crime. These are not difficult things. And when we talk about solving problems, law and order, we have Kim Ogg and we have the Mayor Whitmer wants to talk about law and order the way, let's say, many Republicans talk about law and order, and not realizing that the reason why we constantly have a law and order problem is that we don't fix the underlying problems. And if we did fix the underlying problems, we'd have a solution. And by the way, folks, this is a call-in show as well. We'd love to hear from you, which is 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Before I come back to you, Neil, I want to show you how the minds of many. I love Eric. Eric is on this morning on the chat, and again, it shows you the tunnel vision. And when you have leadership that doesn't try to expand our tunnel vision, you get thinking processes like this. He says, take criminality off the street so victims are safe. I say prevent criminality in the first place so that victims are safe. In other words, their solution is to let crime occur first, which means another person gets hurt, and then we lock them up, which then creates another business model for the capitalist system that has to create jails and all these other things, as opposed to not letting anybody at all get hurt by solving the problem first. You don't get the criminality, somebody doesn't get hurt. You see how logical thinking works, Brother Eric? So stealing a TV is not a hunger problem. It could be a hunger problem if you stole a TV to feed your kids, and I'm not justifying that at all. But I'm saying, think, and think. Do you want to add to that before I go to the first caller? Please do.
I'll just say, Mayor Whitmire keeps talking about police, and more money for police. And he'll tell you that we don't have enough money in our city budget. So where's that money going to come from? Parks, libraries, and I agree exactly that. We could be talking about initiatives. We thought we were going to talk about these things after the George Floyd moment that apparently has passed with an awful backlash, and it's just depressing in some respects. The debate here in Houston, and another thing that I constantly emphasize is, why don't our conceptions of public safety involve our civil liberties? You have open authoritarian threats from one of the two mainstream political parties, and we are told to work with the extremists and to turn a blind eye to the extremists. And I wish we would expand public safety to mean also our civil liberties.
I mean, it's ironic that you solve all those problems, you solve a crime problem. But again, it requires leadership that's willing to educate people. Let's go to Joe. Good morning, Joe. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, good morning to you. How are y'all today?
We are doing fine, my brother. Talk to me.
Oh man, where to start, man? It's a laundry list to this morning. As I tune in the show and I remember yesterday you said that Donald Trump was evil incarnate, and I thought about that for a minute, and then I hear this morning, extremists with guns, the worst insurrection in history. I hear all these talking points. I'm like, you guys sound. I could turn on my AM radio and hear the exact same buffoons beclowning themselves on the air as you guys do,
Uh-huh.
Well, they're getting check over at AM radio. AM radio pleases the powers that be.
AM radio, and I barely listen to this show because because of stuff like this. The only person killed in the January 6th protest was an unarmed woman.
Okay.
Right? How can you guys defend that? You guys, you stop these facts that were reported by the media on day one. You run with that narrative, but as time goes on, a year later, testimony comes. Well, that was false.
No, I'm glad that I'm glad that you called early, Joe. I'm so glad that you called early, and let me tell you why. Because the last conversation we had, you accused me, right, of just being anti-Republican, which isn't the case. Most of the people I live around, most of the people I associate with in my area are in fact Republicans, and we like each other quite well. I don't like Republican leadership because of what it does. And what I asked you several times, the last time you called in, is please tell me on an issue per issue basis where I have lied, misled, or any of those issues, so that I can either apologize to our audience at large, apologize to you, or maybe set you straight, depending on, So I ask you, what specifically you called in this morning, what specifically did we say that is incorrect? I don't want to hear the litany of things. I want an issue at a time, one issue at a time. So give me the first issue you disagree with specifically.
Well, you said this morning that Republican leadership is turning down free money for starving children.
Okay, great. Right? Thank you. That's a topic. That's one thing I can talk about.
What a dramatization that is. Well, ask yourself, what might there be some strings attached to that money? Is there really such a thing as free money?
Okay, I'm glad that you said that. No, the rationale behind taking the money away ultimately breaks down to they don't want the people who's getting this money to have the feeling that the Biden administration is doing something positive in their society, and as such would likely vote for Biden, since the Biden administration is providing that type of a service and not, otherwise.
Let's talk about those positive things the Biden administration is bringing.
Oh, no, wait. Hold on. Joe, I'm going to give you a platform. Go, Joe. Stop. Joe, stop. Joe, we have to be orderly. Joe, stop. We have to be orderly. And I'm giving you a platform, but we have to do it in an orderly manner so that I don't speak on top of you, and give a good listening experience to the people that are listening. Okay. So now you gave your point. I mentioned hunger. I gave a response. Next topic. What else do you want to ask?
Okay. So you said positive things for the Biden administration. Well, a couple of these strings, one of them appears to be that schools need to do away with hunting and archery programs, and they need to allow transgender bathrooms in their schools. I mean, those are a couple of outlandish examples, but what are those strings, and why would somebody turn down that money? Unless they honestly think that transgender students, number one is a it's a misnomer, right? If you're talking about transgender kids, well, you're probably a pedophile yourself, right? And it's creeping in. 20, 30 years ago, gay people were like, we just want to be equal. We want the right to get married, right? That's all we want. Just let us get married and leave us alone. And, as usual, it's give an inch and they take a mile. Now we're going to be teaching your kids.
Can I just
Neil wants to ask you something.
This pedophile language and this language of terming people as pedophiles. I'll be clear. This stuff is a prelude to killing us. This is exactly what was done in Putin's Russia. If you were on their anti-democratic march after Yeltsin, I get very tired of this language. At the John Cornyn Houston office protest where we are out on the corner, we've been called pedophiles, a bunch of people with an average age of 70, and this language really needs to stop. That's the idea that we're facilitating pedophilia. It's become common language, and I just want the audience to understand that it's a prelude and a permission to kill us. And I do the worst possible thing.
Let him finish. We let you finish, Joe. Let him finish, please. Go ahead, Neil.
I've made the point, but we've loosely we're hearing this over and over. It's exactly what took place in Putin's Russia, and it's also a link. It's also a way to communicate that gay people somehow are involved in this that kind of terrible activity, and it's a pathway to doing terrible things to gay people, and that language has become common by our rank and file, by just basic elected officials, by the Republican Party at level after level after level, and it's terrible. It's terrible, and I know exactly where it's going.
I want to ask Joe something. Joe, I want to ask you something, right? You tune into my show all of the time. I think you have a flavor for who I am. You listen to Neil. I think you kind of have a flavor for who Neil is. I sit down and I've gone into school after school after school in the past. First of all, before that, I want to ask you, where are you getting all this information about the existence of pedophilia in schools and trans in schools and all this sort of thing? Specifically, where are you getting that information?
From all over the place, man. I'm asking you. Here's what I really want, right? Because what happens is no. Let me finish asking the question because you started to respond. 7 words there, dude. You let me say you monopolizing the time. Let me just say about the gay thing, man. I'm from Houston. My first job was in Montrose. Gay adults. I got no problem with any lifestyle, whatever. But when you come after the kids, right? And I've seen multiple cases now in the local news, case something in somewhere USA that 2 married men were convicted of molesting an adopted boy. Right, multiple times I've seen this.
Okay.
Right? And look at.
Wait, Neil. Let him finish. Go ahead, Joe.
Go ahead. Respond. I want to have a back and forth.
Okay, well, good. I want to respond to that specifically, okay? Because what I believe is in numbers and science, okay? And here, the reality is when it comes to child abuse, and by the way, child abuse by a gay person is no different than child abuse from a straight person. Do you agree with that?
I would just add the caveat that
that's just what's the caveat? What's the caveat?
Have suffered a higher percentage of child abuse.
I am glad you said that.
Children.
I'm glad you said that, because that would be a false statement, right? A provably false statement. Let me give you some tests that we've done out, not tests, but research that's been done out there. After we started with this issue on pedophilia and trans and on all these issues and criminality, there is a lawyer in Florida that decided to do an experiment. And the experiment that was done was as follows. We will go ahead and scour the courthouses throughout the country and find out who is actually going to court for getting caught for molesting kids, for, sexually, etc. And the results came out. And here are the results. There were 2 trans people that were accused of molesting kids, and what this found in a particular 6-month period. And it's continuing, and the pattern continues. The largest offender of child abuse, sexual child abuse, were evangelical Christian pastors. Second group were, if I recalled correctly, police officers and others. So what I'm saying is, there are numbers that if you are interested in the truth, Joe, if you really want to know the truth, you don't have to listen to the radio and what right-wing or left-wing folks are talking about. You just have to do your research. And there is research out there. You can even do your research on your own to go to court records and find out who are the people committing these crimes against kids. And it turns out it is not gay people. It is not trans people. It is the people you go to church with, or the pastors and the leaders of your church. Hold on one second. I gave you all the time to talk. Now, here's a number you need to go. The Republican, the chair of the Republican Party in Florida, whose wife is pushing anti-gay and anti-trans and all this stuff at the schools in Florida. He just got charged or accused, and now gonna be charged with raping a woman and his wife, himself, and this woman involved in threesomes. I don't care what adults do. I honestly don't care. But what I'm saying is, a lot of the narrative out there, Joe, are making good people like you believe there is some boogeyman out there that's not there. And I think if you really want to be upset at someone, you should be upset at those who's given you provably false information. And everything that I say here, I can back up. So what I'm asking you to do, and that's why I ask you all of the times, where I am wrong, please point it out, and I'm very much willing to give an apology right away. But you got to prove it.
Well, I'm looking right here at the 1991 U.S. population statistical abstracts that differs with what you say, and whether or not you're an evangelical church leader or a police officer or whatever does not mean you're not a homosexual or gay person, right? So, but let's move on. Like this.
Oh yeah, did you see what you just did there? Do you see what you just did, Joe? Joe, hold on. Do you see what you just did there?
Yeah,
that was disingenuous, Joe. That was disingenuous what you just did right there, sir. And you know it.
Show me your outrage, Egberto.
Go ahead, continue, please.
Let's see what else. The climate is another thing that bugs me. About progressives.
Yes.
We've had these throughout history, people who say the world is coming to an end. Repent now, change your evil ways. It's been going on forever, and that's exactly what's going on right now. With this, I'm a scientist. I'm a trained scientist. I've read more journals than you can shake a stick at, and I have never seen the kind of language in scientific literature that I see in these so-called climate reports. In the first paragraph, a PI will say it is established fact. It is indisputable that man-made climate change is occurring, right? Nowhere else in any other paper on Darwinism or other well-established, fields does someone come out and make those kind of arguments. And if you look back in history, history is full of examples of scientists who were imprisoned, who were killed for standing up for what they believed in. The guy who invented hand washing was beaten to death in a mental institution because he dared to suggest that hand washing might save lives. Right. Well, today, the new heretic is the so-called climate change denier. Right. And the climate change, looks great if you're looking at a 4 or 10 or $20,000 year timeline. But look at these graphs that show, something like 500,000 years or 1 million years, the CO2 levels and the temperature, right? Al Gore called the guys who drill into Arctic ice and study history in Arctic ice. He said they were unethical for publishing their results that did not agree with his narrative about climate science.
Okay, I gave you a whole lot of latitude there, so let me. I understand what you're saying about.
Let me sum it in one sentence, one or two sentences. I'll say that the global temperature does not follow CO2 concentration. It appears that it's the other way around, that the CO2 concentration follows global temperature.
Okay. Let me first explain two things here. Before I go to climate change, I want to tell the folks that, yes, I've given Joe a lot of latitude and a lot of time to speak. This is a show that runs, and Neil, I just want to say, this is a show that runs 5 days a week and an hour every day. And I think there are times that we can make certain types of exception. And Augie, I'm coming to you after Joe. But the reason I wanted Joe to continue his speak is I don't want to just talk to the choir. I want to have conversations with others that have other points of views and be able to challenge that in a respectful manner. And there are a lot of Joes out there. There are, in fact, the reason we have a Trump, etc., is because there are a lot of people that have been ill-informed. And look, at some point in my life, I've been ill-informed as well. So I'm not trying to be, whatever at all. But Joe has been informed by a particular narrative, and I think it is important for us sometimes for everybody to hear the expanding of that narrative and why it's there. Now, what he said about climate change, it's partially correct, but it's accurate. It's completely inaccurate. It is true that if you look at things over a 4-year, 10-year, 10,000-year period, you will see that, the climate really undulated this sort of a way, etc. What is not mentioned in those that don't, and again, the narrative that Joe is pushing is a narrative that Exxon had to come up with after, I'm talking Exxon, meaning oil industry in general, had to come up with after their scientists told them, in fact, they are really changing the climate. Their scientists, the oil companies' scientists, told them that fossil fuel burning is changing the climate dramatically. There is no doubt about that. So they had to change the narrative and put the expanded time on it, which is partially correct. Now, what Brother Joe has not told you is that the rise in CO2 in 200 years has never occurred at the speed that it is occurring right now, and henceforth what we're speaking about on man-made climate change. It's okay to read science, but you must not only read, but read all of science. So Joe, I'm for now, I'm going to let you go. I thank you for bringing these issues up and having a respectful conversation. I hope you continue to listen to the program because you will be given a platform.
Welcome. You're welcome, Egberto. I'm sorry for taking up so much time. And
no. Look, Joe, that was my doing, and I think I don't think I did a bad thing. I want people who have other opinions to have a voice, and not only that, where I disagree with you, I'll let you know, and I imagine you'll do the same. But let me just say, on climate change, brother, and on the gay issue, I tell you this politely, but you're wrong, and I think because you're a smart dude, you'll see that. But thank you for calling, brother.
Before you hit,
wait, hold on. Go ahead, Neil. Neil wanted. Go ahead, Neil. He got off, but say what you need to say.
Very quickly. We were just referencing reading, and I had referenced a book earlier, and early in the conversation about Russia. It's called "The Future Is History." It's a National Book Award winner by Masha Masha Gessen, Gessen. The Future Is History: How Totalitarianism Reclaimed Russia. And anyone who wants to read the book that I referenced, and it's scary as could be, the attack
put it in your blog
on gay people.
Neil, please put it in write a blog on it so that I can reference that, please.
Great. Okay. I can do that.
Thank you. All right, Augie, come on in, Augie, and then Mary after Augie. Come on in, Mary, Augie.
Yeah. I've known a lot of Joes, friends, relatives, and strangers, and they always bring up stuff like he does. They bring up one item, and you give facts on that, and then they go to a second and a third, and they keep on going. All I wanted was to talk to them on that first item and tell them where they were wrong. And one time, it was a guy I used to work with. He was never political when I worked with him, and I retired. But then I kept in touch with the crew, and they told me, be careful with this guy. All of a sudden, he's political. And I'm thinking, man, I knew him for 12 years. I worked beside him. He never was political. But I guess he started listening to Rush Limbaugh and kept listening to all these lies. And so one time he invited me to a party. And his wife, her family came by, and they brought children. So they were his nieces and nephews. And we're in the kitchen. And he starts bringing up some political thing, something like Joe does. And I tell him where he's wrong. And then he starts going off, and then he goes to another point. And I tell him where that's wrong, too. But as we're going along, our voices get louder and louder. The kids hear that in the other room. They come and we're in the kitchen. And the elementary school kids come by. And they hear what he's saying. And he's their uncle. And they said, Uncle Rodney, you were wrong about what you just said. Then the middle school kids come in because they saw the younger kids go in, and they hear us talking. And he goes to another tangent on another point. And the middle school kids tell him, Uncle Rodney, you were wrong about what you just said. And then the high school kids come in. And boy, they get all involved. And the kids know he was wrong. And so he gets quiet.
Right.
But one thing about him is, at the end of the party, he said, I walked out to the car, and he says, I know we don't agree on stuff, but we can talk about it. And we shook hands, but we're still friends. But others, and there's some where KPFT listeners, they like the music, but they say they don't like the politics.
Right. I hear that a lot.
Yeah. It's not just one side. We let the right-wingers say what they want, but they just make these points without any basis on facts or truth.
But here's the thing. I want to get to you, Augie. Why I entertain it, Augie. Sorry to interrupt, but I want to get to Mary too, Augie. And, you're a regular, and I want to get more people come by. I want to entertain the conversation with everybody, and I want everybody on the outside listening in to hear. And the reason why is we have to get out of our silos. And if we can get out of our silos, even if I don't convince Joe or whatever, other people are listening, and they can objectively hear what I have to say, what Joe has to say, and say, oh, I can research more based on what these guys have saying. And when people realize that the trans issue is not real, the gay issue, and somehow the gay folks are more or attack kids more, it's not true. And they can do their research on their own and just instead of just listening to a radio personality. But Augie, say something real quick so I can jump to Mary. I really want to get
Okay,
her
well,
in.
like we started off about the funds being refused. The infrastructure plan that Biden put out was voted against by Republicans, but
Right.
now it's helping constituents, and all of a sudden they're praising the money they got that they voted against.
Exactly.
And as far
Thank
as
you,
gays,
Augie.
there was an article in the Chronicle about San Diego. They were strongly anti-gay, just like Joe was, and they started moving into this neighborhood. The first couple of gay guys, and they're against that. But then they saw how they took care of the yard, how they took care of the house, and more gay people started moving in. Now all of a sudden, those people that were strongly anti-gay are strongly pro-gay, and they help more gay people move into them. But they brought up the neighborhood.
Thank you, Augie. I got to go to Mary, okay? Thank you for calling as usual, my brother. All right, come on in, Mary. How are you doing this morning?
Hello?
You're on, Mary.
Okay, yeah, I just want to say that Joe does not represent all. Like I said, I'm independent Republican thinker,
Right.
and I do not believe gays are out to, molest children just because they're gay, and I don't believe the trans thing is people are just out to molest, but there are. Like you said, in every walk of life, there are people out there abusing children and molesting children. And he is wrong on just saying it's gay people. And there is a group out there, I don't remember her name, it's called Gays Against Grooming. They are against this trans thing. I'm against them going into libraries dressed like they do, dancing around like a stripper. And things like that, because we don't allow them in strip joints. We don't allow them in adult education, so that shouldn't be done. But I don't believe everybody that's gay, trans, straight, Christian, whatever, are molesting children. But we do need to be aware of everybody doing that and fight against it, no matter who they are.
So, in other words, Mary, you believe in equality, you believe in equity, and again, even if you don't support something,
I believe you judge someone on their character.
Thank you, and I can't argue with that, right?
Yeah, I hope nobody can.
Right.
But we have a lot of problems in this world, and we do need to come together, and get rid of our Republican, our progressive, our Democrat labels, and come together.
I am. Oh, I'm sorry. We have a little delay, so forgive me.
Okay, go ahead.
First of all, that's what I want, right? And what I think all of us should want is for us to start voting our interests. And I think I remember a call from you before when we were talking about Medicare Advantage.
Yes,
I think that's you. Yeah, that's what I thought. And you are, you're a Republican, but you like to say you're an independent. It's okay. But independent thinker, right? And I have nothing. Like I said, my sister. I have an older sister that is a Republican who I love dearly. I have every stripe in my family. Every political direction, race direction, everything is a part of my family. So I believe in all of us, being doing together. But what I tell you, Mary, like I think, wait a minute, you are the person that had an infection as well that a good doctor cleared up, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good. My mind is not fried completely anymore. Anyway, so what I'm saying is, I want you to vote your interest. If your interest is a Republican guy that's doing something that's going to help you, you vote for him or her. If it's a Democrat that's going to make sure you have health care, you vote for that person. It doesn't change who you are. You're just voting your interest.
No, but there's a problem on each side, on each candidate. they're not perfect. One's got one I despise, one's got one I despise. So it's like, the old saying, you got to see which one is heavier on you,
There you go.
If we could get rid of the D and the R's and just, stop. Okay, you got to be Republican to think this way. Oh, you got to be a Democrat to think this way. Let's just think, like you said, our own interest.
Mary, let me run to. I got to run to Joni, but you are correct. You're correct.
When you go to vote, some cases you can't vote a split. You have to vote straight, and it's
right.
I don't know if you made that rule, but that
well,
rule's
no,
not
actually,
right.
in Texas now you can vote a split, right, Neil?
In some elections,
yeah. You can now, except in the primaries, you have to choose which party you're going to vote in the primaries.
Right.
But in the final election, you can vote whoever you want to vote for. Okay.
Vote for everyone.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mary, for calling. Let's go to Joni real quickly. Joni, come on in.
Hi. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning, Joan. Yes, I can.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you, Joni.
Alberto?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. I can hear you now too. So I was wanting to address the, researching. First of all, thank you for having other voices. That a lot of people in my family, a lot of people in my neighborhood. And one of the problems that my husband and I have discussed is that our friends, good people seem to, we can't reconcile in our minds how they can support basically a draft dodger, gangster type who's putting himself to be the one trying to steal elections and then holding the gas can behind his back while he points at, the other side for, setting a fire. And one of the problems we have, I'm afraid, and I've laid out before, my stance on electronics is that we don't have a common space. We used to watch the same programs, same news programs, but we don't have that common space anymore. And the algorithms give you information, feed you information based on what you've looked up before. So the science, and I'll put that in quotes, that they're going to get are going to be people just, possibly making up statistics, for their own agendas and forgetting that there are people who've dedicated their lives to trying to find out what's really happening so that we as basically a civilization can make informed decisions. So there are those scientists out there, but you can get funneled to you through the digital media, things that are not true. People just, kind of make up on the spot. And so we're missing that common space. So I appreciate all that to say. Thank you for having a space so that we can hear people's perspective.
Thank you very much for that, Joni. That's what we try to do here. And Neil wants to respond as well. Neil.
So let me just say to the last two kind callers, Mary and Joni, that so in terms of Mary, you're a Republican, great. I think now you're trying to navigate things and listening, but I think we've hit the point 9 months shy of this election where you have to be talking to other Republicans and saying, look, there's a real authoritarian threat. It's here right now. And I think with Joni, this is not direct to Joni because we all have situations. I have situations. I think so not directed at you, but in general, we need to begin to have conversations with friends and family. That moment is here. So I know we want that common space. And the moment is here, right? But it's time for those conversations.
And that's why we do what we do. Joni, you wanted to add to that?
I was just saying it can get pretty heated, and there have to be coping skills that we use and kind of prepare because it's like somebody's telling you the sky is purple and you see it as blue, and as blue mean the same thing as it did a few years back. So it can get pretty heated because you have completely different perspectives and different experiences. But I don't think that trusting their own experience, their own eyes, their own ears. They're just listening to something that it's an echo chamber, like you were talking about, and a bubble. And we have to pop the bubbles because we're all living in the same space. It is, and they hate to hear the words one world. Well, we don't have another one. I know they're trying to find one, but we have one world that we're all breathing and, and we live and breathe and have our being. So we should, we should all try to do our best to communicate effectively to help it get better. Anyway, thank you again. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you.
And I'll have to go.
Thank you very much, Joni, for your call. Alistair, come on in, Alistair. Oh, Alistair, call back. Call back real quick. I think we dropped you accidentally. Come on in, brother Brian.
Yeah, I'd like to briefly touch on what you were talking about yesterday, about the county. That the recap, if anybody wasn't listening, Clinton won at like 92%. The next time it was 89%, and then Al Gore wanted it by 70%.
It kept going down. Yeah, it kept going down. Yeah.
And it kept going down until 13% for Biden.
Right.
And the answer is very simple: is that's coal country.
Mm-hmm.
You can't take a man's and a family's job and his lifestyle away and expect him not to vote for the opposition. And that's exactly what happened.
And you know what's so funny about that, Brian? You are 100% right. And remember that I said something similar to that. What I said was the following. We understood. Remember, we're talking in a capitalist system, right? A capitalist system doesn't have the solution. And let me explain. We need to stop burning coal. We do need to stop burning coal. But when we stop burning coal in West Virginia, when we take away the livelihood of those people in West Virginia, we don't replace it by just giving them food stamps and free money, etc. We go ahead and we do that as a stopgap measure. And since the capitalist system doesn't see the value in the beauty of West Virginia, we the people do. We could establish businesses in that area to give people good paying jobs. Don't you agree? And Democrats didn't do that. Democrats didn't do that. No, they just gave them food stamps.
Yes.
But at the same time, Brian, hold on. At the same time, what Republicans wanted to do is say, let's do coal again. And I'm saying, no, let's do the right thing. Let's give them food stamps to get them over the hump and then make their lives productive. And that is where I think I see the intersectionality with you and I on the West Virginia issue.
Okay.
Brian?
Have you been to West Virginia?
Yes, sir, I have. And it's beautiful. The mountains, it's a beautiful place, man.
Yeah, it is. Okay. But you can't have, as far as a farm, it's too rocky. The terrain is too.
Yes.
Okay. What other industry can be put out there? And why hasn't it been done yet?
Oh, we have a lot of industries we could put out there. We could have pharmaceutical industries out there, and a lot of the engineers, etc., that works in pharmaceuticals would enjoy the beauty of that area. We could put manufacturing for semiconductors in there. And there is so much that could be done, but you need a government who advocates for that, right? That says, hey, capitalist system doesn't see that. You know why? The capitalist system that even the Republicans and Democrats support alike are on the coast, easy access, etc. It does to a capitalist, it doesn't make sense to create a good road system into West Virginia so that you can have great industries. But a system that has good government partnerships can say, wait a minute, we are going to make it viable for the West Virginians who live in a great place to be able to remain in a great place. And I think you would agree with that, Brian.
Why hasn't it been done yet?
Because it hasn't been done because we don't have the leadership out there that thinks outside of the box, neither Democrat or Republican, because both parties have failed West Virginia. Both parties have failed West Virginia. That's what I'm saying, Brian.
No, the Democrats failed due to the Green New Deal.
Okay,
period.
Let's stop. Okay, stop. Let me ask you this. And Brian, this is where we need to make
I'm sure you have other calls.
media
Tomorrow.
All right, good. I think Brian is scared that he's started to feel that. Oh my God, we're on the same wavelength. Anyway, Neil, I want you to finish. Give me some sentences to finish up your two other topics, please, brother.
My two other topics. Yes.
Oh, I caught you off guard. That's okay.
We had on my blog. We have six. Plenty of time for this in the weeks ahead. But there are 6 council Republicans on our Houston City Council. I think we need to know: are they Trumpers? Because again, they're pitching authoritarianism, and we have an obligation to know that. And connected to it, my other topic was Mayor Whitmire is asking us to, and you notice, like, the General Land Office found $200 million to give for Harvey funds that they couldn't find for Mayor Turner.
Yeah,
but the land could find that write-off for her. But I do think it's important. I just keeping it local. Our Republican council members should ask, do you support this authoritarianism? And it's the most of city in the country. And this is on my Houston Democracy Project blog at the Houston Democracy Project. You can Google it and you'll find it. And it's at neilacquino.com. And it's just so important that we not lose sight of the local, especially giant influential county in this giant big state.
Thank you so kindly, Neil, for being a constancy here for us on Thursday with great local and national information. I pass it back to Jack for a quick closer before I end the show. Jack?
Yeah, maybe Abbott and the other 14 other governors are just mean-hearted and are gaslighting federal government by not taking federal money to provide school lunches for poor children during the summer. And Joe, statistics from 91, really?
But none of that. It does. The thing about it is, it doesn't matter, right, Jack? Because people are people, and the fact of the matter is, gays have never had any proclivity greater than heterosexuals to affect kids. It's never been there. These are things. But however, there are certain professions that people get into because they have easier access to kids, right? And one of those are, I won't get it right now because I don't have the time to defend myself on the statement that I'm going to make. But anyhow, Neil Aquino, thank you so kindly for being a part of Politics Done Right here on Thursday. Jack, thank you so kindly for your dedication. Callers, all of you, my left-wing callers, my right-wing callers, my every caller in the middle, love you guys. For real. Like Joni said, we have to be on the same team because we are on the same team. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you know how I end this, baby. I am what? Out.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.